Hey, what is up, YouTube? So this is gonna be the first video on doing the LS swap on this 87 El Camino. So we got the engine in, we picked that up from Pro Touring Store, along with a bunch of other parts that we needed for the LS swap. We also got a transmission in, we picked that up from MP Transmissions. So definitely if you guys need an automatic transmission, hit them up. If you guys need any parts for your LS swap, definitely hit a Pro Touring Store. Now in this video, we're gonna go over everything that you need to do prep-wise to do the LS swap, which means how to like pull the engine out, what wires to mark, and everything you're gonna reuse on that car for your LS swap. So you guys make sure you guys stay tuned for the whole video. It might be long. I'm gonna always put little titles in the bottom to help you guys jump, so you don't have to sit here and watch a 20-minute video. But this is gonna be the first video on pulling out the engine, how to set up for it, how to label all the wires and get everything ready for your LS swap. As always, guys, if you guys like these videos and you want to support me, you can always go to my website, buy some merch. You can definitely hit up my sponsors, support them as they help make these videos possible. And I told them to drive it one more time to see how it feels before we do the LS swap. Now, if you guys want to directly support me, there's always my Cash App, which helps fund the channel to get more stuff, to do more mods. And make sure you guys always like, comment, and subscribe on all the videos. Alright guys, so right off the bat, safety is paramount. So always when you're doing the LS swap, make sure you chock all the tires, especially when you guys go to pull off the drive shaft, because as soon as you do that, the car could just roll back. There's nothing else holding it unless you have a parking brake on. Alright guys, so the first thing we're gonna do is, before we get started, is we're gonna drain all the fluids out. So that means we're gonna drain the radiator out, we're gonna drain the transmission. Because we're gonna pull it out together, the engine transmission, if you don't drain the transmission when you pull the drive shaft out and you jack it up, it's gonna leak tranny fluid all over the back. So you can either drain it, or if you have another slip joint, you can slide it in there and cap it off, or slide it in there so it plugs it up. Then you don't have to worry about that. We're also gonna drain the power steering. You don't have to worry about the brake fluid, and you don't have to worry about the oil in the engine. You can leave that without draining it. So let's go ahead and get started. So we are doing El Camino, but we're gonna do, this video is gonna be basically, so it covers any swap. So we're not gonna get specifically like, hey, take off that bolt, that bolt, that bolt. We're just gonna tell you what to do, and hopefully you guys know what to do. So obviously we're gonna take the shred off. There should be, on these old school radiators, there should always be a drain in the bottom. They call it a petcock valve. So we're gonna look for that. If for some reason you can't find one, or yours doesn't have one, just pull out the lower radiator hose, take out the clamp. Obviously you're gonna make a mess, so be prepared for that. So we're gonna go ahead and get ready to catch as much coolant as we can. And then we're gonna start draining out the lower hose for the radiator and go from there. If the engine is warm, you guys just drove it, check the hoses. If the hoses are hot, chances are there's pressure underneath here. So wait till it cools off before you open this up. Ours doesn't feel hot at all, even though he went on the block. These usually have a little safety part where you can just do like a little turn and you'll hear it go, if you do that, back away real quick because it's obviously pressurized. I don't feel any pressure here, so we're gonna go ahead and open it up. And we open that up so that way when we open the bottom hose up, we take it off, we don't create a vacuum effect by having this closed. We let it drain out freely. Another quick tip, guys, if you're doing engine work for the first time on that vehicle, make sure you bag and tag all these little fasteners. So we're gonna pull these out, we're gonna put them in a specific bag, and we'll label it Radiator Shroud. And the reason you wanna do that, even if you don't plan to reuse these, what if you do need them down the road and you're like, holy crap, I don't know where they go, I don't know what size they are. Well, at least you have them bagged. If you don't need them, after you're done with your swap, just throw them in the trash. It's no big deal. But it's better to be safe than sorry. All right, guys, so as you remove them, throw them in the bag and then label the bag. Also, while you're doing this, if you got some exhaust that is kind of got rusted bolts like we do here, you're gonna wanna start using some penetrating oil now. Spray them really good, saturate it. So that way, while you're doing the rest of the stuff, this thing has a little bit of time to penetrate. And hopefully when you get to the exhaust stuff, it's not that hard to take off. Now, another thing that's gonna make your life a whole lot easier is just pulling the hood off. So that way you have a lot more room. Plus when you pull the engine out, you don't have to worry about hitting up here. So we're gonna go ahead and pull that out. But when you do that, make sure you mark it wherever it attaches. So I have to put a strip of tape this way and then one this way. So that way it shows where the hood was at. Same here, piece of tape that way. That way, if you don't care about it, you can mark it with a highlighter, or I mean a marker, permanent marker, or anything like that. And that when we put it on there, you get pretty close to lining it up to how it was originally before you took it off. All right, guys, so when you take off the bolt for the hood, you're gonna take off the you're gonna take off the top ones first, and then you're gonna take off the bottom one last, because that bottom one is holding the hood from sliding down and tipping forward. If you take off that one first and then these last, the hood is gonna be tilting on this bolt up here, which will put a lot of pressure on the hood, might even bend it. So you only wanna do that one last, take off the top ones first, get everything ready. Now, when it goes to pull off the hood, you can see Diego's left hand is grabbing the bottom there. That's gonna keep the hood from sliding down that way and hitting the windshield. He's gonna use his head to keep the hood from tilting forward. So with his head, he's pushing up. With that, he's grabbing it so it doesn't slide. He's gonna use his free hand to take off that last bolt. I'll be on this side. Do the same thing, I'm gonna grab down here, put my head up top, and then take off that last bolt. We're gonna do it together. Once we do that, we're gonna pick it up, get the hood out of the way. Let me take off mine first, because this one's stuck up here. Go ahead. No, going the wrong way. All right, yeah. Watch out for the jack behind you. Go over it. Oh, my bad. All right, so you guys see without the hood, we got so much more room. So if you have an older vehicle like this and you have a shroud with the mechanical fan that runs off the belt, most likely your shroud is two pieces. So you have a bolt here, here, same thing on the other side. Take off all the bolts, take off these bolts. The top part should come off. So we're gonna go ahead and pull that out. Pull the shroud out from the top. Pull the shroud out first, and then we'll take off the radiator, because we just gotta take off that hose over there. Once you pull off both hoses for the radiator, the only thing you should have left if you have an automatic transmission is maybe some transcooler lines. Obviously this one doesn't have one. I don't know, I think they ran an external cooler or some shit. But the radiator should be easy to, or ready to come out once you got all the hoses off. We are not gonna reuse that. If you are gonna reuse that, just put it aside. Since we're not, we're gonna get rid of it. All right, so the radiator's out of the way. The reason I like to move that, because it gives us enough room to get up and out of here. But if we want more room, we're gonna start doing is pulling off all the front accessories. So we're gonna pull off the water pump, alternator, power steering. Obviously when we get to the power steering, that's when we're gonna drain it. We're gonna take off the carburetor, because we're gonna mount our plate to the intake manifold where the carburetor was at to pull the engine out. Obviously, anytime you guys take off grounds like this, you wanna make sure you put them back on. This is an important ground. This is for the engine block to the battery. So you gotta make sure either you put this one back on or replace it with a thicker one. I like to go thicker because it makes it easier for the starter to get full power and then turn over. So on our vehicle, you can see this is a line that goes to the back of the fuel tank, comes here to our mechanical fuel pump, feeds it. All we're gonna do, we're not reusing this line, so we don't care about it. We're gonna cut it here. It might leak a little bit, I doubt it. The rest of these hoses are attached to the engine, so we don't have to worry about those. Also guys, another quick tip, you can see this wire is attached to this wire here. So obviously this is gonna be a ground wire. I don't know what it grounds. It could be the gauges, it could be something important, it could be something I want to remove. Regardless, it'd be a good idea to, I'll take this off, mark this ground. That way, once you go through your harness, once you start pulling out cables, if this cable still remains, you know it needs to go to the ground. Something like this, you could freaking take pictures of it, and then you gotta label this alternator, and then obviously you have your positive wires out here, that your alternators, this is your output for your alternator. So you wanna make sure you hook up these back to mark them, and then when you do your LS swap, hook those back to your LS engine alternator if you still have them on. What I mean by that is once we pull everything out, we're gonna go through every single wire and determine, hey, do we need this? Do we not need this? Hey, this wire here goes to the distributor cap. We don't need it, yank it out. Hey, this wire here goes to the gauges. We don't need it, we're running the code digital gauges, yank it out. Hey, this wire here goes to the freaking instrument or the turn signals. Yeah, we do need that, put it back on. So once we get to that point, I'll show you guys how to do that. All right guys, so we're about to pull out the power steering pump. So one thing you guys wanna make sure is you pay attention to, and a lot of people screw it up all the time, is these hoses here, because you wanna make sure that you put the high pressure side back on and the low pressure side back on. The way to tell is if you look at a power steering pump, anyone that has a hard line on it is gonna be your high pressure side, or anyone that has this type of crimping here is gonna be your high pressure side. So you wanna find out where that goes. That one goes here, here, here. That's gonna be my high pressure side. This is gonna be my return side. If you look at it, anytime you have a return side right here, it's always gonna have a rubber hose with these style hose clamps because it's low pressure. So you don't have to worry about having these kind of fittings to put the rubber hose onto there. All right, so we're almost done taking off all the front parts. We just need the power steering and the water pump. But when it comes to the alternator, when it comes to the carburetor, things you want to label and take off before you pull the carburetor off is the wiring. Look at all the wiring. If it's wiring specific for the carburetor, we're not going to reuse it. So don't worry about labeling it. Vacuum hoses, you do want to label, because like if that vacuum hose goes to our AC unit and we're still using our AC unit, we want it to work. If that vacuum hose goes to some other module that we need vacuum to, we want to make sure it works. Obviously, you want the vacuum hose for the brake booster. We want to hook that one back up to the LS engine. And after that, you just have 4 bolts holding up the carburetor. 1, 2, 3, 4. Take it off, carburetor comes right out. Again, vacuum lines, make sure you mark them. These connectors that go onto the carburetor, I would say mark them, because if you pull this off and then you're trying to put your LS engine in there and you have the connector, you're like, holy shit, I don't know where it goes to. Where should I plug it into? Well, if you mark it, hey, carburetor, freaking, you know you don't need it. And then you can just trace the wire down. Remove it. Also, don't forget to take off your linkage. If you are reusing your transmission, you might have a kickdown cable like this that helps it shift. Make sure you reuse that. You also have your cable for your throttle. If you're gonna reuse that, you might need a different bracket, but this needs to come off of the engine for you to pull the engine out. All right guys, so a quick tip on some of these hoses that have been on here for a while. You can see this one, it's not even twisting off. You could try to stick a hose pick in there and try to get it loose. But one thing I like to do is I grab these slip joint pliers. These from Nipix are fucking amazing, man. I like using these. But you go on here, you grab this here. Don't squeeze the crap out of it. Just grab it, just so it grabs a hose. And just kind of like break it loose. You see that? Now it's loose. Now that thing should come off pretty easy. Just keep twisting. Try and do it with one hand. Just like that. And then it'll come off. If you can't grab it here, you grab it here too and break it loose over here. And then that's it. So it comes out super easy. All right guys, so real quick on taking apart these linkage here. This is really easy. They just pops forward. You slide it forward and then the little clip comes off. On the bottom one, that one just should pop off. This one on here. Actually, I'm sorry, you slide it forward and then it pops off like that. And then on these here, these are just pushed in. So if you squeeze them here and then push them out, they come out real easy. All right, so we put the transmission in neutral, took the linkage out. This here was stuck, so we had to get a pry bar in here to pop it out. Now it's slid into the transmission. Once it's slid in, we're able to drop this down. And then once we pull it out, we do have an extra slip yoke that we're gonna slide in so it doesn't leak all over the place. So as we pull it out, we're gonna pull towards us. So go ahead and pull it out. And then Rolly, make sure you grab that slip joint to slide it in so that way you don't get peed on with transmission fluid.
Where's the slip joint? Right?
Yeah, that one.
All right, ready? All right.
And you can see it's leaking now.
All right.
Drop it down.
Oh.
So if you didn't drain your fluid, you want to do that. That way you don't keep leaking all over the place. And then we can just pull the drive shaft out. Go ahead, pull it out. There you go. Quick tip, guys. Whenever you get these from your transmission shop, your driveline shop, they should have tape around this here. And the reason for that is because if this slides out, you got all these needle bearings in here that if they fall out, they're hard to put back on, pain in the ass. So if you have tape on there, just be aware. Or if you're taking this off and you plan to reuse it, be aware of that so that way you make sure this doesn't slide off. Because if it falls off and these get bumped, these are all like single pieces and they all just fall out of the ground and it's hard to put them back in. All right guys, let's go over the transmission prep for removal. So obviously we want to take off the trans cooler lines. They might be routed to an external cooler like ours are right here, or they might be hooked up to the radiator. Regardless, make sure those lines are off. And remember, as you're pulling it out, if the transmission lines from there are still hooked up and they're just hanging over here, make sure they don't hit anything on this side. We're probably gonna unplug them at the transmission. So make sure that's done. Obviously, we got our drive shaft out. And let me go to the other side real quick. There's our drive shaft. Don't forget the linkage. And this is assuming you're pulling the transmission and engine out together. So don't forget your linkage for your transmission, which is right there hanging down. That goes right there. Make sure that's unhooked. And then loosen up the bracket here so it just hangs there so it doesn't bind when you're pulling the transmission up. Make sure your transmission motor mount is out. And if you have a cable, because your transmission is old school, if you have a cable from there, go into your dash in the front, unhook it there, move it off to the side, make sure it doesn't get in the way. We had this sensor because someone installed decoder digital gauges. So we had this sensor here, we unplugged it, it's hanging to the side. Also, another tip, guys, what I like to do is take off all the bolts for the cross member mount right here, the cross member for the transmission. I take off all those bolts, and when I'm pulling the engine out, before I even pull the engine out, I jack up the transmission a little bit just to get it off the cross member. Then I take the cross member all the way out, so there's nothing holding the transmission up except for my jack. Then I let the jack go down as I'm jacking up the front of the engine, so that way my transmission and my engine tilt this way as much as possible, so it's easier to get it out. So as I'm jacking it up, I'm lowering this down, I move the engine forward, transmission forward, and then I go up out of the way. So with that extreme tilt, if you don't have a yoke on the back of the transmission like we do here, you will leak a lot of transmission fluid out. So that's the prep for the transmission. Since it's coming out together, we don't have to worry about the torque converter bolts, any of that stuff. All right, when it comes to the engine, prepping the engine, obviously, we know we pull all the accessories out. We got the water pump out, power steering, alternator, all that crap. We took all that out. That gives us more room. So that way when we come up, we go forward and then up and out. Now, we also took off the ground wires. There's a small ground wire back here that I just cut off because I will add another ground wire from there to the body. So you have a ground wire from there to the battery. You should have one from there to the actual frame, like this metal frame right here. And you should also have one from there to the actual body of the vehicle. That way, when you're in the vehicle or wherever you are in the car, if you ever want to ground anything, you can just find some kind of metal part, ground it straight to that, and you should be good to go. All right, so when we're prepping the engine to pull it out, don't forget the motor mounts, guys. I already mentioned the grounds. Look for any cables that are attached to the engine that might get routed to the instrument cluster and like that. We want to make sure we pull everything off of that. All right, guys, so another quick tip, and one that people screw up all the time. So don't forget, you still need power going into your vehicle to power up your freaking ignition switch, your cluster, your radio, whatever, anything that gets powered in there from the fuse box. There's usually a big fat wire coming out of the fuse box, getting power from somewhere on the vehicle, right, before you remove it. Well, usually those wires come straight to the starter here. So if you look here, you see all these wires here? These are right here, what's called fusible links, and then they power up a big fat wire behind it. So these might be going to like a distributor. Another one might be going to the fuse box. This one here is going to your starter to start it. So this is your actual key on start. So make sure you guys label these. Now you will have one post on here. That's your starting post, your cranky post. This one here gets power 12 volts when you turn the key on to start the vehicle. This is part of your original harness of your vehicle. It has nothing to do with the LS swap. You won't get an additional wire with it, nothing. So make sure this wire that's hooked up to your ignition switch gets connected to your LS swap starter on that same post that for your starting post. Now the other post that's gonna have a lot of cables on it, it's a lot fatter, you can see it there. That's gonna be this one here, this huge one that goes to the battery positive right here. That one will have 12 volts at all times. That's powering up all these cables here that go inside your vehicle for your freaking key on power, your radio power, your lights, any of that crap is gonna come from these two wires here. You might have 3 wires, you might have 4, but it's gonna come from the wires that are hooked up to this post here. So make sure you label it 12 volts, purple, or not purple, but cranking power right here. This one's cranking power, this is 12 volts. A lot of times people leave this one off and then they won't have no power when they turn the key on, or they don't hook this one back up and it won't crank over. All right, so this has nothing to do with your LS swap as far as coming with the computer or any other kind of harness that comes for your LS engine. This right here is completely separate. Mark them, put them on the side. Once you put your new LS engine in it, put this one to the starter, put this one to the fat battery cable on your starter, and then you should be good to go. Now, like I mentioned before, if you're gonna keep your original cluster because it's working fine and you want it to continue to work, if you have your original transmission and you're gonna reuse it, your speedometer should work, your odometer should work. If you have a tack wire here, if you have the tachometer in there, there should be a tack wire coming here. Hook it up to your computer on your Terminator X or regular ECU, whatever you're using, and your tag gauge should work. But other stuff that you'll need a label. For example, this is our coolant temp sensor here. It's green. It's usually green on GM vehicles. So we want to make sure we pull this off here, mark it, coolant temp sensor, and then we're going to use this same exact sensor and put it onto our LS engine. In case you haven't seen my other videos, this coolant temp sensor is usually an MPT thread. I think it's like 3/8. So it's usually MPT, so you're gonna need an adapter to convert that thread on this sensor, and you're gonna plug it in right on the passenger side right here. So that's the front of the engine. This is the back. Passenger side has a little plug for your coolant temp, and on this side it has the coolant temp sensor for your control module on your computer. So you're gonna plug it in over here with an adapter. Now the other thing that you will want to transfer over, if on your original instrument cluster you have an oil pressure gauge, usually you gotta find your sensor at. Usually it's gonna be back here in the back. I think this is ours here, our sensor. So if you want to use the gauges, reuse the gauges, use that sensor, use an adapter that converts those threads on. There's two spots you can either plug it in for oil pressure. You can either put it back here in the back of the LS engine, or you get an adapter and put it right here where your oil filter goes. Here's where your oil filter goes. You put an adapter here. It had a port to screw in for your sensor. Now, if you're running Dakota digital gauges and you're using Terminator X, or you want to use a BIM module to convert the signals, the sensor signals, you won't need to run all these wires. You can just get rid of them. So it's not a big deal. Another quick tip, guys, if you forgot to label these and you have no idea where they go, just look at the ends. You see how that one has a small circle? That's gonna be your starter wire. You see how these have fat circles? That one has a fat circle. That one has a fat circle. These will go to the fat post, obviously, guys. All right, just to keep it simple, man. All right, guys, so as you can see, we started to take it out. We got the motor mounts out here. And like I mentioned before, the cross member is out right there. We got the transmission on jacks. That way we can adjust the back up and down. So let's go ahead and finish this up. All right, guys, the engine is out. So next up, we're gonna go through this wiring harness here, dig all through it. Any wires we don't need, we're gonna dig as far back as we can and pull them out. And then we're gonna clean all this up, make it look presentable. And then we'll be dropping up, well, we're gonna add a little bit of paint, make it look presentable. And then we're gonna be dropping in the LS engine. So you guys stay tuned. I'll show you guys how I'll wire up the Terminator X and all that stuff. So I'll catch you guys on the next video.